Are you ready? It's time for a story time. Let's everybody gather around, gather around. And it's time for me to tell some stories. Okay, by judging the thumbnail, I have to say this video is going to be a doozy. We're going to talk about serious adult type content. This is trigger warning. This is grown folks alert, grown folks alert, grown folks alert. So if you are not grown, exit out this video. And this is definitely a trigger alert. If you are watching this video and you're feeling mentally unwell, you're feeling uncomfortable, click off the video. I'm not going to get mad at you. Come back next time. But we are going to talk about some heavy, serious topics. And I'm going to start with a story. I'm just going to tell you guys a story. Long time ago, there was this girl, okay? This girl had been she is 16 years old, okay? She's a teenager, still a girl, still naive. This girl was part of a cult. She was a part of a high control religion. I guess that's the more politically correct term. A high control Christian religion. Some of you have experience out there with various high controlled fundamentalist Christian religions. She joined this religion when she was 12 years old, but that is another time for another day and another story. But let's just stick to what we're saying. So, a lot of people who belong to these fundamental high controlled religions understand that when you become a teenager, especially 15, 16, 17, you go through a rebellious period. So she was going through her rebellious period. She was still going to the church. She was still attending. She was still a faithful Christian. Gosh darn it, she still believed in the Lord and everything like that. But she understood that she was in high school and, people are dating, people are doing all kinds of things or having parties, just the normal things that 16-year-olds want to do. She couldn't do because her religion taught her that was not Christian behavior. Okay. So as she realized that because she felt like she was being left out and missed out, of course, you would feel like you were missing out on things. So this girl was 16. She didn't know anything about the world, about anything. So around this time, this is like the advent of internet. We're talking about AOL dial-up. We're talking about AOL chat rooms. We're talking about the heyday, the start of really like internet, before social media, before TikTok and Twitter and Facebook. So before all that, predates all that. But back in the day, we would have like IRC, we would have chat rooms and stuff like that. So this young lady, young girl, 16 years old, joined a chat room. Okay, and in this chat room, you would just talk to many people. I have to kind of explain this because some of y'all may be young and y'all don't know what a chat room is. So this young lady got in a chat room and you talk to people and you don't know who they are, just like you don't know who they are right now on the internet. So she started, to make a long story short, she started talking to people, and they would have like group chats and stuff like that. I could say kind of like, I guess like Discord. I guess Discord is what it would be the equivalent, but it wasn't that sophisticated. It was very rudimentary. And so she started talking to this guy. And this guy didn't lie. He told her he was about 40 or 41 years old. So she started talking to this guy and he seemed really cool. They had the same interests. They both like science fiction. They both like to read. This girl, her self-esteem was low. She was, I guess, nominally attractive. She's chubby. But she's 16. You're 16, what do you know? You're coming into your own. What do you know? You don't even grown yet. And she didn't know a lot. She didn't know a lot about men or everything. It's something that's not taught in the church, something that was taboo. You really don't talk about sex in her church or anything like that. She was a virgin. She didn't know anything about that. So she started talking to this man. She had no idea anything about predators, to catch a predator. This is before that. And so she didn't know. These things weren't really talked about. They weren't talked about in her church. They weren't talked about at home with her grandmother. So she didn't know about men and boys or anything. So this man started talking to her, and the man eventually was like, hey, we should meet. So she was like, okay, we're cool. We're friends. She didn't think anything about it. So she decided to meet this guy for lunch or whatever. Nothing happened. They met for lunch. She was like, okay, he was an older gentleman, kind of a handsome gentleman. He looked a little bit younger. But still, nevertheless, she's 16. He's 40, 41. So eventually, to make a long story short, this guy starts to talking to her more and more and talking to her. Again, this is even before cell phones. They were talking on the phone. And again, her grandmother didn't know anything about any of this. And so every once in a while she would tell her grandmother she would walk. She was going to go walk to her friend's house. She had a friend that lived right around the corner. She would walk to the gas station. Again, she's 16 years old. Her grandmother's like, okay, well, make sure you come back in a few hours. And of course, she would come back. But her grandmother didn't know she was meeting this man. And again, nothing was going on. But eventually, in time, the conversation starts to become more and more adult, more and more sexual, more and more flirtatious. To this grown man tells a 16-year-old girl that he expresses interest in her in a romantic sort of way. But there was nothing romantic about this, ladies and gentlemen, at all. So in essence, in other words, he was grooming her. Okay. Getting her trust, telling her she's pretty, everything like this. And this man had money. The girl did not know that this man had the money that he had. And so one day he took her. She told him she had to be back in a couple. He took her to his house, and he lived in this mansion in this fancy part of Dallas, this fancy area. Okay, and she had never been in a house. She lived in an apartment. Okay, with her grandmother. She had never been around anybody. She's seen stuff like this on TV. This is like houses that you see on TV. This is not real, to her. She's going to this man's house, looking around, blah, blah, blah. And also she knew that this man had a girlfriend. Now, his girlfriend didn't live with him, but this man actually had a real girlfriend that was his age, and he had been dating this girlfriend for a couple of years. So she kind of knew about that, but he told her that he didn't really like the girlfriend. Y'all know. Okay, some of y'all are like, yeah, we've heard it. I get it. We've all experienced, the guys are like, oh, I really don't love her, I really don't care about her, blah, 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 blah. So the 16-year-old, in her naivete, believed this man. And so she went to his home one day, and he gave her, some alcohol. She had never really had alcohol before. She got a little woozy, and then the let down her inhibitions, and so her and this man was intimate. This 16-year-old did not know what this man did was illegal. She had no idea. No one ever told her. She never heard about it in school. Before Diddy, before Epstein, before any of these things, before Nickelodeons, before all of this. So she didn't realize that what this man had did to her was very much illegal. And so as time went on, she started to see this man often. And just like I said, here and there. She couldn't go spend the night over his house, anything like that. Her grandmother knew what was going on. Her grandmother didn't know what was going on. And again, like I emphasized, this man was rich. So rich, and as a matter of fact, that this man had other rich friends. So this man had rich friends. And I mean rich friends. This man in particular, he was a real estate guy. Let's put it that way. He was a real estate guy. And then he also had ties. He had friends in California. He had friends all over the world. But he had a lot of friends in California. He had friends in the movie industry, in the music industry. And so he had ties to all kinds of musicians and all kinds of artists and things like that. And so he would have these parties. So this 16, one day he would regale this 16-year-old with tales about these parties, about these lavish parties. And she would just imagine in her mind, thinking like it's some kind of fairy tale situation about these lavish parties. And so she expressed to him one day, she would really like to go to these parties. She would really like to go, see what it's all about. Is it really all what it is? And so she tells him, she's like, I'd really like to go to this party. So one time he invites her to this party. And this party is at another friend of his home, okay? So this girl, she walks around the corner. She gets picked up by him. So she walks around the corner so her grandmother couldn't see. She told her grandmother she was going over her friend's house. It was like on a Saturday. And she told her grandmother she would be home later that evening. But she was gonna hang out with some friends of hers, but she would be home like around midnight, okay? So she goes, this guy, he picks her up and takes her to this party. Now, while he's in the car and they're driving, it's like a 45-minute drive, he tells her that when they get to this party, first of all, let me back up. He tells her to wear something sexy. So she wears this bodycon dress, this short dress, in these heel shoes, you know, even though she doesn't like heels, she's wearing it. So he tells her to wear something that makes her look older. He's like, makes something to make you look older, something that's cute, something that's sexy. She obliges, okay? And I think, to be honest with you, I think he actually bought her an outfit 2 weeks before. Yes, he had bought her this skimpy outfit and he bought her these shoes. Expensive dress, expensive shoes. He buys her this outfit. She wears it. She puts the coat on and walks out the house. Her grandmother's not even paying attention to what she has on, but she has this really skimpy short dress on. And so she gets in the car with this man. They drive to this. And so while he's in the car, he's telling her, you know, there's some rules to this party, okay? First of all, when you get to the party, he explains that she can't talk to the other young ladies that are there at the party, that these men have actually brought guests with them. They have their own guests at the party. So she thought it was kind of odd, like, wait, what? She couldn't talk to the other young ladies, but okay. She thought it was kind of odd, but thought maybe it was some kind of weirdo game. This is what rich elite people do. She didn't know. So he tells her, you know, just talk to him if she can talk to the men there, but she couldn't talk to the other women there. So she's okay. And then he told her, whatever that happens or whatever, you know, if you have any questions, don't ask it there. We can ask it on the way back. The way back when he was going to take her back home. So she says, okay. All right. They get to this party and it's at this some lavish guy's, rich guy's mansion. Um, and she whispers to the guy, like, what does this guy do? This guy apparently was involved in politics some way. She didn't know. All the guy said was, oh, this guy, he's involved in politics. And his wife and kids were away. And so he wanted to have a party. So it was a bunch of older, rich, mostly Caucasian men there. And there's, you know, there's various women. And they're all dressed in, you know, various lavish outfits. You know, not all of them are skimpy. Some of them short. Some just young and younger women. All these women were younger. All these women, um, they looked around the same age as the 16-year-old, or maybe a little bit older, but not too. But these men were older. These men were like in their 40s, 50s, 60s. So they have food, they have drink, they have all kinds of things. Lavish party. And so she just sticks with the guy that she came with, a quote unquote her boyfriend, I guess if that's what you want to call it by now. And so men come up to him and the guy introduces her to these men and everything like that, and various men, and then they introduce the girls that they're with to her, or whatever. And so throughout the course of the evening, there's, you know, more drinks are flowing. Some of the guests are invited. Some the host, the guy who owned the house, was inviting guests to go to another wing of the house. So they would go to this other wing of the house, and they would have these rooms where you could have like you could see inside the room. There's like this slot where you could see inside the room. And so this girl, 16-year-old girl, she was like, what's going on? Why is everybody going back to these rooms? These rooms are where you can, either what they would call peekaboo rooms, where you can watch guests that were at the party having sex with the woman that they came with, or sometimes another. So this 16-year-old sees this and was like backing up because she'd never seen anything like this. This is crazy. So she kind of feels uncomfortable, but didn't want to show that she was uncomfortable. So she kind of like says, oh, okay, and kind of laughs it off and kind of turns away. And so the guy that she's with, says, well, are you uncomfortable? And then she tells him, yes, I don't want to watch people. I've never really watched anyone have intimate relations before. I've never really, seen anything like this. Like this is some stuff that that she kind of blew her mind. So she was taking a while to adjust. And he said, okay, that's fine. He understands that this is her first time at this elite party. During the course of the evening, she sees other men come up to the guys that she's with. So she's standing off in the corner, eating, drinking, sometimes sitting down because her feet hurt. And she sees the other men are talking to this man. And so then the man comes over to her and was like, let's say, make up a name, Roger over here would like to take you out next week, or Ken over here would like to know if you would like to get to know him better, or go to another room and talk to him, or maybe we can go to another room and there's like a private room we can have like on a private party. Again, this 16-year-old didn't know what was going on. So the guy that she's with and two or three other dudes, they go off to the side room. And she's thinking it's just to get away from the crowds, and just for it was all the noise. She was drinking a little bit. She was a little buzzed. So she was like, okay, I want to go. Take me to this other side. I take you to the side room, and they're whispering, and she doesn't know what's going on. To make a long story short, these men proposition her for sex. The 16-year-old gets scared, and she starts to head towards the door and walks out of the door. She doesn't want to do. She's like, I'm not gonna do this. I'm not, And so the guy that she came with, her quote unquote boyfriend or whatever, was like, that's okay. To make a long story short, this is one of many parties that she went to. This particular 16-year-old, she met with people, some people that she recognized, like sports figures, and some people that she didn't know who they were, but obviously they were big wigs. Obviously these were elites. And this was the type of scene that this 16-year-old was subjected to for quite a while. She got to know the elites. She got to know what these people were into. And it was some very sick, sick shit. So this 16-year-old experienced a lot of things. Now, she hadn't done anything strange for a piece of change, like nothing like that, but she experienced some really serious things. Today, in our world right now in the news, is everybody talking about the Jeffrey Epstein thing that's back in the news, the letters, the revelations, the things. And I am here to tell you that these type of situations exist not just in America, but worldwide. And they also exist in K-pop. Now, I know firsthand about what elites do and what happens with elites. That 16-year-old was me. That 16-year-old was your girl, truly. When I was 16 years old, that is a very true story. And that's what happened to me. I was hanging around older men. I was hanging around elites. I was hanging around rich people who were beyond rich, anything that I've ever witnessed and seen anything before. And I know just somewhat of what these men are into and how they get down and how they think about women and how they think about girls. So yes, I've seen this firsthand. I'm going to tell you how this connects to the K-pop industry, because these type of situations and men are everywhere. Rest assured. Okay, some of y'all know that I have friends who work in the K-pop industry, and I'm going to tell you two different stories, two very horrific stories. There is a friend of a friend who worked in the industry. She started out young. She started out as an intern. She was working as an intern. And while she was working there, you get to know people and stuff like that. But she's working her way up. She's in college. She's about 22 years old. Out of college, working her way through the industry. So her boss, the one that's in charge of her, I won't say what agency this is. I won't say where it was at. I won't, none of that. But her boss tells her, you work here, because they were having a conversation, and this young lady, she's 22, she was telling her boss about her boyfriend. She's like, oh, boyfriend, I have a boyfriend, da 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 da. And so her boss pauses, and her boss is like, if I was you, I wouldn't really mention to too many people, especially their head boss, which is a guy, that you have a boyfriend. And then the 22-year-old is like, oh my gosh, like, did I say something wrong? Like, maybe I shouldn't talk about personal things at work. And so she asked her boss, well, me having a boyfriend is not going to stop me from doing my job. And, me and my boyfriend really don't see each other that much. And then her boss, her immediate boss, stops her and goes, no, that's not the point. We're not afraid that you're not going to do your job. It's just that some of the men around here, well, let's just say you should keep things quiet about having a boyfriend, because they might get the wrong idea. So this 22-year-old just thinks it's a privacy issue. So she's like, oh, okay, maybe it's a privacy issue. Maybe we shouldn't talk about like our romance lives at work. Months later go by. She happened to be at a industry event, industry party, industry gathering with other professionals and other staff. She was talking. They drinking. It's South Korea. They a little loosey goosey, right? So she inside. So she drinking, and she soju hit her real hard, and she talking to a female coworker, and she was telling her like, "Oh, I should have invited my boyfriend." Da 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 da. She was overheard by one of the managerial teams, the head of the managerial teams for the groups. She was overheard by him. She didn't know it at the time. So time goes on. She gets another assignment. She goes and works for this agency. This managerial guy comes up to her and he was like, "So you have a boyfriend?" And she's like, so she's scared to say anything. She like, and he was like, "Well, overheard you at the event, at the event that we had. I heard you talking about your boyfriend." And so she's like, "Oh, okay." So she can't lie. So she's like, "Yeah, we have a boyfriend," but she's like, "I promise you, it's not gonna get in the way of my work. That I don't tell him what I do. I don't divulge any information about any of the artists. That I'm very discreet." And so she tells this guy, "I'm very discreet." And the guy just was like, "Oh, okay." Because she thought that was the issue, was discretion and privacy. So again, she didn't mention her boyfriend to nobody else again. So eventually, as time goes on, this guy would go up to her and he was like, "So, do you and your boyfriend have any plans this weekend?" And she was like, um, uh, no, no, not really. And then he was like, so it started off stuff like this. So he would ask her things about her boyfriend. Eventually, this would escalate to him asking very highly inappropriate sexual things about her and her boyfriend. So she went to her boss and she's like, "I don't understand what's going on." Like, and then the whole tone of the team that she worked for, especially with the men, would change. She would walk by, they would make rude remarks. This manager, this grown man, this man was like in his late 40s, would tell her, "You should wear, you have a real nice body. You should wear, more tighter outfits. You should have you got a real nice body. You should wear something more tighter." And then she's like, "No, I'm comfortable what I'm wearing." And she would be like, "Oh my God, like, is he staring?" And then she would walk by, the male members of this agency would snicker at her. The male staff members would say things about her, would stare at her behind. And she went to her manager. She's like, "What's going on?" She's like, "Well, did they find out you have a boyfriend?" "Yes." She's like, "Oh, well," her manager told her that when she started working in the K-pop industry, that she would tell everybody that she didn't have a boyfriend and she was a virgin. Because the moment you tell some of these men that you have a boyfriend or you're not a virgin, they will get after you. So that is what my friend has experienced in the K-pop industry. So, and like I said, this was a while ago. Things have changed, but yes, I thought it was very disturbing that the moment male employees at times, not everybody, but the environment of this particular agency at that particular time was, you don't tell the men you have a boyfriend. They're going to think that you're promiscuous. You don't tell them you're not a virgin because they're going to think that gives them the green light that you sleep with everybody. So all of the women worked there had either pretend to be virgins, not say anything about their love life, and some of them even pretended that they were just not interested in men at all because they would be sexually harassed. And so my friend that worked there, she was harassed all the time. This guy would corner her. This guy would say, "You should go out with me." This guy would put his arm around her. This guy was like, I bet he would talk about her boyfriend and ask her about sexual things. "Have you guys done this? Have you guys done that? Has he touched you here? Has he gone down on you doing this?" Like, he would ask her all these questions and she would just be like, "I'm not going to answer that." And he would frame it as, "Oh, he's just joking. He's just joking around. He's just he's just joking around." But no, everything was fine until these men found out that she had a boyfriend, and that she was with a man. They just automatically assumed, and she was bait. And we have heard of situations like this, like in the Maiden situation. I told my video about K-pop unions, and I talk about Maiden and Got In was a member of Maiden. And then once the CEO found out she had a boyfriend at her dorm, he targeted her as if because her and her boyfriend were intimate, that all suddenly now she's this promiscuous, loose person because her and her boyfriend were sneaking around, and she was a minor at the time. And so, and the younger you are and the more you divulge that you've dated somebody, there's a significant slut shaming. And it's not even slut, it's just you being a normal teenager. They just assume that you're a loose person because you've already dated. So that's one K-pop story. And then I have another. So my other friend who worked in industry, again, these are all women. These are women that had it happen to. My other friend who worked in the industry. She hadn't been in the industry for that long, but she secured a very prime position. She secured because she knew people who knew people who knew people. Let's just put it this way. She had friends in the industry already, so she kind of like she did work her way up to the top, but then she also kind of a nepotism situation, which that's time for another story another day. But she got in position again. I won't say what agency or what position or what she did, but she was, let's just say, she was on tour, in a tour type of situation, travel type situation. And she went to California with some people. And then also she was, there's like I would say like an after party. And there were American executives there, and there were mostly Korean, but she was there, with the group and with staff. And then there were some other, like I said, producers and stuff that were there as well, and executives there. So it's kind of a mixed crowd, but mostly South Korean, mostly the people that work for her agency. But she's an attractive woman. I think at this time she probably was like 26, 27 years old, like around that time, like in her mid to late 20s. And she was at this party. And then if you know anything about Korea, if you're going to these parties, people get really, really, really inebriated. Not everybody, but a lot. She was drinking, the drinks were flowing, everybody was having a good time, laughing, talking, joking, karaoke, all the things, all the things. And so one particular executive came up to her, and he's a Korean, and he was management or whatever, and he was having a good time, and he was talking to her through off and on throughout the night, off and on throughout the night. She could tell that this man wanted something. And then my friend, she's single at the time, and she could tell that this guy was kind of like flirting with her a little bit, and he just kept going back and coming back and talking to her, or whatever, whatever. As the night wound down, this guy kind of was really was highly inebriated. And she was sober. She was a bit probably sober at this time. And so this man basically cornered her and was telling her that he could make her career go a lot further and all this other stuff. And she was like, thanks, but no thanks. Because she knew what he was trying to say. And he was telling her, you should come work underneath me, underneath my team. Again, I won't elaborate what exactly he was talking about, but you need to come work for me under my team. And she was like, no, I'm happy where I'm at. And he was like, well, if you come work underneath my team, I could really, you could elevate, I could get you to a higher position. Your career would go far. And she's like, I appreciate it. I thanks for the offer, but I'm really happy, and I like the team that I work. I like the group that I work for, and I'm good where I'm at. Well, this man eventually at the end of the night cornered her, uh, like physically cornered her, and she was like, "Okay, what are you doing?" And this man groped her, and when I say groped her, I don't mean pinching her backside or touching her up top. I mean groped her like between the between her legs, and basically was forcing in her. She freaked out. She pushed away from the man. To this day, it horrified her. She would see this man at other industry parties, and it horrified her. As time went on, months went on, she didn't say anything to anybody, but she finally opened up to somebody because everybody noticed that her attitude, her mental health was suffering, and people would understand that she wasn't the bright, bubbly, outgoing person that she was, and people, were asking her, well, do you not like this position? Are you not happy? They thought it was job related. So she finally broke down in tears and told somebody what had happened, and then that person eyes got really big, and that person was like, I have to tell you something, but don't tell anybody. That same executive had essayed somebody, had actually essayed another young lady who didn't work there, that she had quit before my friend got there. He had been known around in this agency and in the industry as a man who would get sloppy toppy, and he would grope women. And he had been known to force kiss women, grope women at parties whenever he was drunk, and then turn around and apologize and buy them a Gucci bag or something like that. And he was known as a person that would proposition um, women, all young ladies, all the time. And he was married and had kids and everything. But again, he was in high up in this particular agency. And from what I know, this person still works in the K-pop industry. They are probably like in their late 50s now, and they still work in the industry. As to whether they're still doing this, I don't know. But like my friend, she couldn't say anything to nobody, but it's just kind of like an open secret that this guy gets a little handsy with interns and young ladies, and everybody just kind of deals with it because he's been in the industry for quite a long time. This person has also been known to throw various parties, inviting all kinds of people from the industry, and people just are feel like they're obliged to go because he is pretty well known in the industry, and people respect him. Like his business acumen is good, but people understand that, like, you have to leave early. They were like, don't go. Okay, you're gonna go to this party. Okay, make sure you don't stay too late. Because they say once you start drinking a little bit and you stay too late, that's when things get a little uncomfortable. And so people have described various uncomfortable situations at these parties. And, young ladies have been described as being propositioned in various different ways. And so, and then my friend, again, she was traumatized by this. And she still talks about it and will tear up because of, just the feeling of helplessness, and then the shame behind it, because she thought, maybe did I drink too much? She blamed herself a lot for this. But then again, like I said, this person, she can't say anything, didn't say anything, because this person is pretty well known and high up. And I think this person has connections to chaebols, and he golfs or hobnobs with other rich guys. And so, they all of this for me to say that this goes on everywhere. So I just want to tell people, just a story about my life and my experiences and things that go in the industry. And I feel very strongly about how idols and people and young ladies all over need to be protected, and that people get so shocked about these things. But I'm here to tell y'all, these things go on. They're going on right now. And it's not just rich elites. It's not just these really rich white dudes and in the entertainment industry or business or politics. It's beyond that. Like, it goes on many different levels. There are levels to this kind of stuff. Those are just Epstein and his friends and his pals. Those are just the pinnacle. They have islands, they have money, they have all that. But there are lower level people. There are people who are just professionals, doctors, lawyers, business people that are in groups and doing these types of things as well. So I'm just giving you guys my perspective. I hope you guys, understand, where I'm coming from. Again, I feel strongly about idols being bullied online. That is one of the reasons why I feel strongly about trainees being too young. That is a reason why I feel highly skivvy about young people being manipulated into doing things by their parents. That is another conversation for another day when I talk about New Jeans and I talk about, where were the parents and Min Hee Jin, because again, I've seen other things in I've heard of things in the industry, but seen things outside the industry by parents who have basically sold their soul, sold their kid's soul for a jelly roll. Like, I've seen things in the entertainment industry that is, when we've heard stories about these stage parents. That's no joke. It hasn't been scrutinized enough about the parents. People talk about the predators. They talk about the predators, which they should be, because that's where the blame lies. But some of this stuff, the parents need to be scrutinized as to what is going on, or ask questions, or for some of this. Now, some of this the parents don't know. Like in my situation, my grandmother didn't know what I was doing, but I feel like she should have known. I am a very involved parent, and I tell parents out there to be involved with your children, especially nowadays. I mean, back in the day, my day, that was a long time ago, but now things are more sophisticated. So I tell people, please be involved with your children. Please see what your children is looking at. Please see who they talking out online, and don't take it lightly. Take it very, very, very seriously. I've experienced this firsthand. Take it very, very seriously. I do. I go crazy over online stuff, and that's one reason why I don't do social media. There's so many predators out there. There's just so much out there, not just in these elite circles, but just out there, period. So you guys be safe. So what do you think? Were you guys shocked about my stories? Make sure you like, share, subscribe, and put your comments in the comment section. And until next time, you guys, thank you. Army! I love